This, of course, is the 350th anniversary of the city of New Haven, and we thought that it would be the perfect forum to have a joint program between Horeb Lodge B'nai B'rith and the Jewish Historical Society.
Of the many ethnic groups in Connecticut, Jews are among the most thoroughly organized. Recently, one of the oldest Jewish organizations in the state, the Horeb Lodge and chapter of the service organization B'nai B'rith, and one of the newest, the Jewish Historical Society, held a joint meeting to explore the history of Jews in New Haven, and in particular the history of the B'nai B'rith. Until 1843, Connecticut law did not permit organized congregations of Jewish or other non-Christian religions. But in that year, the law was changed, and a group of German Jewish families from Bavaria formed the Congregation Mishkan Israel, the first Jewish religious society in Connecticut. The New Haven Register reported, "Strange as it may sound, it is nonetheless true that a Jewish synagogue has been established in this city, and their place of worship was dedicated on Friday afternoon." Less than a century later, in 1938, a report found 25,000 Jews in New Haven and stated that, excepting New York and Atlantic City, no city in the United States has proportionately as large a Jewish population as either Hartford or New Haven. 1/6 of New Haven's residents were Jewish, and there were over 60 religious, charitable, fraternal, Zionist, and other Jewish organizations in the city. The oldest of the lay organizations was the Horeb Lodge, part of B'nai B'rith, an international Jewish service organization whose name can be translated as Sons of the Covenant. The Horeb Lodge was founded in 1856 by 24 German Jewish men, at a time when New Haven's growing Jewish population was forming religious congregations such as Mishkan Israel, Mishkan Shalom, and B'nai Shalom. Dr. Barry Herman, a longtime member of the Horeb Lodge, tells why the secular organization B'nai B'rith was formed.
What happened, as in most communities, it happened in New York, Hartford, all your big cities, these groups were very hostile toward each other. Many, many differences arose, and there was no agency for uniting the Jews in a given community. And so a B'nai B'rith was needed, and B'nai B'rith was formed to unite such Jews, to give them a forum, a benefit society, an Americanization program, and so on.
The Jewish community began to change dramatically with the arrival, starting in 1882, of Jews from Russia and Eastern Europe, fleeing poverty and the anti-Semitic attacks known as pogroms. One of those present at the meeting was Lee Hirschman, whose father, Bain Stock, was one of the first Russian Jewish immigrants to New Haven. In an interview, Lee Hirschman, now 99, remembered her father's stories of how he came to New Haven and stayed with a Landsleit, someone from the same hometown.
He arrived in America when he was 17 years old. 1882, his father was killed in the pogrom. So he came to America. They got off at Ellis Island. And my father wore a little like a badge where to go in New Haven, some Landsleit. At the end of the year, he saved up $100, $1 a day. He worked 12, 14 hours, sergeant, our lock maker in New Haven, and 12 hours a day, and walked back and forth.
The religious and cultural traditions of the Russian Jews were far different from New Haven's established German Jews, and they quickly created their own institutions. Lee Hirschman's father went to a New Haven banker to buy a building where they could worship.
The bank listened to my father. He said, "We came from America and we're living here, and there the family is separated. We have no place of worship. Each week we have to go to each one's home, and it's an effort." And I went by the corner and I saw a little church. So the man laughed. He says, "Young man, that little building has no roof, no plumbing, no floors, no windows, and no steps to go into it." My father, he said, "I examined it. That's why I'm interested, and we have no money." He says, "But our relatives, our friends, our Jewish groups, I think I can get together a couple of hundred between the 30, 40 families." That was the start of the B'nai Jacob.
While the existing German Jewish community was willing to offer charity to the impoverished newcomers, they were more reluctant to admit them to their well-established social life, a fact reflected in the history of the Horeb Lodge.
In 1904, Horeb Lodge was a little bit snobbish, so they formed a second lodge, the Meyer-Zunder Lodge, which was made up mainly of Jews from Eastern Europe. The lodge only existed for 3 years, and then Zunder Lodge was disbanded and members were taken into Horeb Lodge. This was a merger which marked a milestone in community relations.
Between 1880 and 1930, New Haven's Jewish community grew from 1,000 to 25,000, almost all immigrants from Russia and Eastern Europe. They built many Jewish institutions that remain to this day. Lee Hirschman recalls how the Jewish Home for the Aged was started, by Jewish women.
For 6, 8 women. This one baked bread and this one cooked the meat in their house. They started a little shanty, a story and a half, a dilapidated. No convenience, but there was a few people, like for the poorhouse. That was the beginning of the Moshe's Canaan, I think, in Jewish. I was at 3 groundbreakings. At the first groundbreaking, 75 years ago, with my son, who was then 3.
The growth of New Haven's Jewish community reflects not only the ethnic diversity of Connecticut, but also its evolution from Christian commonwealth to religious pluralism. The Jewish community itself was far from homogeneous, divided first by different religious tendencies, then by the distinction between earlier German and later Eastern European immigrants. A common identity running across such divisions did not just happen. It was nurtured by organizations like the Horeb Lodge, which cut across other divisions to stress a common Jewish identity. Today, an estimated 28,000 Jews are dispersed throughout the greater New Haven area. No longer geographically concentrated in the central city, they are using the exploration of their own history as one way to define what the group holds in common. The Jewish Historical Society, besides holding regular meetings, has published 4 volumes of papers on the Jews of New Haven. I'm particularly impressed by their willingness to look honestly not only at the group's contributions and successes, but at the tensions and divisions that are also part of its members' common heritage. Incidentally, the Jewish Home for the Aged remains a thriving institution today. That's where I interviewed Lee Hirschman, who lives there at age 99, and says she is enjoying it.
It's not sad living in a nursing home. You get a lot of love and respect and make new friends. It's as simple as all that.